Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of the Arsenal News Show. Join you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. I hope you've had a recovered week. Yesterday was a day of reflection after the disappointment of Wednesday, but this weekend, without Arsenal playing, of course, we don't play until Tuesday when we face Chelsea at the Emirates. I feel as though we can have kind of just a chilled out weekend, more so than we have done in previous weeks. Yes, there's kind of a rush to want to see Arsenal play again, to put this City game behind us. But, I think I'm actually looking forward to a weekend where we can just kind of watch everybody else in a way. And then we can deal with our own challenges come next week and come Tuesday. But good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Johnny, good morning to you, to Black Shine, to Old Dave. Good morning to Matt G and Paul. Good morning to Martin, Penny Ween, NSW, Akmal, Damien, Louis. Good morning, Lewis. Good morning to all of you joining us. Always appreciate the kind support that you give all the time. Do drop a like on the video. Do subscribe if you are indeed new around here, with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. I was joined, I joined Dan Potts yesterday on his channel to talk about kind of the City game. If you haven't yet gone and watched that, make sure you do. The chat box is an experience, I can tell you that for sure. It's very different. It's very different indeed. Lots of, and this isn't because of Dan, I don't think. I think I don't know why it is, but a lot of Arteta outs, in the chat box. It was certainly something. And a lot of abusive people as well. It's just the way that it goes. I don't really get it. But I enjoyed myself. It's always a pleasure to chat with Dan. And it's always a pleasure to be asked onto his show and talk Arsenal. But it was an experience. So if you want to go and watch that, Gabriel says, now you realize how civil we are, Tom. Yes, you guys challenge me. But you keep it civil. They don't. they really don't. To be fair, I think Dan said that a lot of them aren't necessarily always in there. So they saw some new people that were. Maybe they found me because they're blocked from here. That must be they're chasing me around YouTube. Rent-free, indeed. And Malarkey, thank you so much for the kind donation. Hope more people super chat you because you do put in the work. Thanks, mate. I really appreciate that. Up the Arsenal, indeed. Right, let's crack on with today's story, shall we? First of all, yesterday's Premier League action. Spurs coming back against Manchester United. I mean, talk about how bad you must be to not be able to beat Spurs. Man United fans giving Arsenal supporters so much stick after the Man City game. They can't even beat Spurs, even when they have a 2-goal lead. Talk about laughing at Arsenal not being able to hold on to 2-goal leads. You blow it against Spurs. The team that got battered. They were 5-0 down against Newcastle in 20 minutes. And you can't hold on to a 2-goal lead at Spurs. That is rather hilarious, if I do say so myself. Newcastle, meanwhile, putting more distance between themselves and fifth place. They are flying at the moment, and their 4-1 win over Everton has put them in a position whereby they can pretty much, I think, sit comfortably. They've played a game less than Spurs, and they're 8 points ahead of them. They can move up to 11 points clear of Arsenal's North London rivals if they win their game in hand. And they've got Southampton next at home in the league. So they have got a lot still to play for, do Newcastle. And certainly teams next season are going to be on the lookout for them. And their 11 draws this year, just the 4 defeats, which is the same as Man City and Arsenal, certainly shows the resilience they have. And it's going to pose a significant challenge for Arsenal when they arrive on next weekend, St James's Park, next Sunday. Going to be a very difficult challenge for Arsenal indeed. Now, Gabriel took to social media yesterday after Arsenal's defeat against Man City. He posted that, "I love this club. I love this squad. I feel at home, and this is where I want to win and achieve my goals. We will not give up, and we will fight and honour the Arsenal shirt until the end." With the quote of, "There is always room on the stage of victories for the warriors who never give up after a fall." And I love the spirit, I love the determination, the character of this team. And I love the messages that get posted. I love the kind of resilience that this team shows, the individual fight that each of the players have is always fantastic to see and read and hear. And I spoke to Aaron Ramsdale actually after the game. You can watch the interview over on NBC Sports' YouTube channel. But I spoke to Ramsdale after the game. I asked him a couple of things. I asked him about why, when Arsenal play City at home, there's this kind of real proactiveness about Arsenal. We have plenty of the ball, we dominate certain elements of areas of the field, and we create like really dangerous chances, as we've showed in our last two games against City at the Emirates. And yet when we go to City, they just tend to dominate the game and we can't really get a foothold in the same way. And I asked him why. To which he says that he wasn't sure, and then it's a question that he can't really answer, which is not the first time I've asked a question that one of the Arsenal players have found it tricky to come up with an answer with. That's on me, not them. But he did continue to say, it's the first time I've played here as an Arsenal player. Just for the first 45 minutes, we were a yard off the pace in pressing in battles and giving them chances. So as I said, if you want to come here and get anything, you need to outrun and outfight them. And for 45 minutes, we were just a bit off. And I think that that's probably a fair kind of representation of what we saw. We weren't on it for the first 45 minutes. We really struggled to get into the game. And that led to the first goal. And then the second goal, obviously, right before halftime, which I think was really damaging. Had we gone in at halftime at 1-0, maybe there would have been a kind of a response more so in the second half if we'd have been 1-0 down rather than 2-0 down. And we can talk about the offside, and there's been discussions around the offside. I think that it was probably offside from the looks of the images that we were given, if we do trust them. But Ramsdale there speaking about that kind of difference, but admitting that it wasn't necessarily always down to where we played and actually more down to our own performance. I also asked him about kind of now being in a position where we could be chasing Man City rather than pushing them back and leading them. And he says, I've not been in that position this season, so it's a difficult one to answer. I know from a personal point of view, at the different end of the table, you prefer to have points on the board rather than be chasing. We will just go into each game with 5 games to go trying to win all 5. And we will see where that leads us. Then you never know what can happen. And I feel that that is kind of the message that we're getting from the club at the moment. It is more so around, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if City are going to drop points. City have more games to play, and they are 2 points behind us. So the 7 games that they have compared to the 5 games that we have, averages, the Norwich averages tell you that, you'd hope that they would drop points in some of those games. Away from home, City have tended to find things trickier, and they've got some tough away fixtures. Fulham, you look at on paper as a tricky one, but they have not been doing so well recently. Brighton, of course, is a very tricky fixture. You would have looked at the Everton game as a bit tricky, but they've just been battered by Newcastle at home. So you think on paper there's some trickier games for them. Brentford away on the final game of the season is not easy. All of their away games, aren't easy. And so you'd hope that they'd be able to drop points. And we just have to try and win. If we can win all 5, I think that's the only way that we got a chance, is we have to win all 5. If we drop points again, I don't see us doing what we need to do. But Brighton at home, tough. Chelsea at home shouldn't be tough, but, you never know these days. Newcastle away is a very, very hard game. They're in brilliant form. They barely concede. They're now scoring lots of goals. That is going to be a very, very, very difficult game for us, but we've got to try and get maximum points at St James's Park, unlike we did last season. Now, Sam Dean of The Telegraph has been reporting some transfer stories, and so to round those up, you can read the full article on The Telegraph, of course. But Sam suggests that Arsenal have held initial talks over a potential move for Mason Mount. Liverpool continue to be the favourites for Mount, who did undergo surgery and is expected to miss the end of this season on a minor injury. That will hopefully be recovered from by the start of next season. But Arsenal are said to be one of the teams that are very interested in signing Mason Mount and see him as a potential option for their attacking flair, where they could put him in that left 8 role, if you like. I think that's an area that maybe we could see some attacking options put forward for that role. And maybe Mason Mount is that guy. He's very versatile as well and won a Champions League starting in the final against Man City. So it'd be interesting if this is one that Arsenal follow up on in the summer. Furthermore, Declan Rice remains the number one target. We've reported that here, of course, and that's my understanding of the situation, that Declan Rice remains the number one target. There's been suggestions that it's already done from some people, which is, fair enough. I've not heard that myself. I hope you're right, but he remains the number one target that Arsenal will be pushing for in the summer. And also the expectations, Ivan Fresneda will continue to be a target for the summer as well. Sam suggested that a lot of work was done in January with the player and that they will be aiming to try and beat away competition from Newcastle and Borussia Dortmund for Fresneda in the summer. Arsenal certainly need to try and find that key right-back option because if they don't, I think they're going to struggle next season again with the options that are available to them. Fingers crossed we can get the deal done for the player. Now we're going to move to part two, but before we do, of course, I need to tell you about the Football Prizes competition. There are 172 tickets left, according to the Football Prizes website. You can win, as I say, a signed Gabriel Martinelli and Bukayo Saka shirt. Just by entering the competition, you get some instant win prizes. Emile Smith Rowe, Eddie Nketiah signed shirts available too. All of them come with the certificate of authenticity, which is important. But do make sure you get involved with these. Do make sure that you, buy a ticket, otherwise you won't be with a chance of signing them. But yes, massive props to Football Prize for continuing to support the channel. And of course, plenty of our listeners have won these as well. So I always appreciate getting sent the photos when our listeners do get hold of any of the prizes available. Link down in the description for the UK listeners. Anyway, let's go to part two then, and your questions right after this. Now, I'm very pleased to announce that we have raised now over £1,400, which is going to be donated to the Arsenal Vision fundraiser. I'll be putting that donation in a little bit later on today. We've sold over 100 caps since we launched the merchandise. And of course, half of that money, the profit that we've made from that, which is we make around £10 per hat, and the rest, of course, goes into making, embroidering, and supporting the local company that has partnered up with us. But we get about £10 per hat, and we commit half of that £10 to the Arsenal Foundation, and the other half goes to Cancer Macmillan Support. And we usually will be making quarterly donations, and of course, we'll continue to do that, and we'll do that with Cancer Macmillan Support. But for this month, we will be donating to the Arsenal Vision fundraiser, which is in support of the Arsenal Foundation anyway, so it makes sense to join forces with them. I will be matching the full £500. So you managed to, as I say, by buying over 100 hats since we launched, means that we fulfilled the full 500 that I was going to match. And also we'll be donating this month's membership fees. So everyone that is a member on the channel, everything that came in and that was recorded as of this month that we earned from memberships will also be going into the fundraiser as well. So we'll be donating nearly £1,500 towards the fundraiser, which, I know pales in comparison to the €50,000 that Arsblog has contributed, which was a brilliant piece of generosity that we saw yesterday. And fair play to those guys. But we're hoping that our contribution will go a long way as well to helping those in the Zaatari refugee camp. So yes, a massive congratulations to everybody that's helped support this cause and everybody that's got involved with this, and we're very proud to be contributing to the fundraiser as well. Okay, let's go to your questions then in the chat box. By the way, if you still want to get a hat, you can get the USA one, you get the gold one, the red one, the grey one, all down in the description. We are continuing to support the fantastic causes each time you get yourself a hat. Global shipping, don't forget either. So anywhere in the world, hopefully you can get yourself one too. Let's go to King. King, so good to see you in the chat, my friend. If Arsenal finish second with 90 points, what would be your rating of the season? Probably a 9. A 10 would have been winning the league, but has to be a 9. Finishing second, 90 points. What an achievement. To be honest, finishing second will give us a 9. I could not be on my wildest dreams ever have imagined being in a title race this season, and that has been a gift and a blessing and sometimes a curse. But without a shadow of a doubt, it's got to be a 9 for the season. Penguin says, I'm getting more and more tempted to try to take up golf. so I can sum up golf in a few short words. Expensive, frustrating, rewarding, social, and addictive. There you go. There's 5 words to sum up golf. What was it again? Expensive, frustrating, rewarding, no, I said expensive. I've already forgotten. That shows you the sieve of a memory that I have. Addictive and something else that I can't remember. But yeah, there you go. 4 or 5 words to sum up golf. Let's go to Boss, who says, Tom, do you think it's Arsenal and City who will be the 2 teams fighting for the season every season? If so, then why not go big like City did and get the other best striker in the world, Mbappe? That'd be great. I'd love Mbappe. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to see Arsenal go out and sign Mbappe. I don't think it's going to be possible, but I'd love to see it. I'd absolutely love to see it. I don't think that Haaland is going to be at Man City forever. I think Real Madrid are very keen on signing Erling Haaland in the future. And apparently there is kind of clauses in his deal at City that may activate a release clause in the future, similar to the one at Borussia Dortmund. So let's see if that does indeed happen. If that is the case, then they are going to be without the best striker in the world. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, why not? Go for Mbappe. Try and sign him. I can't say I'm particularly a big fan of his personality, but certainly from a footballing perspective, he seems like an amazing footballer. James says, if you could pick your dream Champions League group for us next season, who would it be in the group? Wow, that's asking me to know every single kind of league and asking me who's going to be in which pot, which is a hell of a question. I guess, obviously, Group A, I think, is the Portuguese league. In Group A, I think that it might be. Who's top of the Portuguese league at the moment? Benfica. So I know Benfica are a very good club, but I think you'd hope that Benfica would be your Pot A group. You think that we would be in Pot 2? I think we're going to be in Pot 2, maybe Pot 3 even, because we've been out of the competition for a while. Our coefficient's not very good. I think Pot 2. So let's say we're Pot 2. Pot 3, I think then you start getting into kind of the 3rd or 4th place teams in some of the top leagues. So at the moment, Union Berlin and Freiburg are in 3rd and 4th in the Bundesliga. So maybe one of them for Pot 3. And then Pot 4, it's usually going to be like somewhere, it's usually like a league much further down the coefficient. So who is top of the Cypriot Premier League? Let's have a look at that one. Cypriot Premier League, Cypriot First Division. Apoel are top at the moment. So let's say Apoel into Pot 4. There you go, James. You really challenged me with that question. Let's go to Sean, who says, yesterday you mentioned how you predicted the scoreline to one of your friends. I was curious to know what indications led you to believe this prediction. I was going with higher expectations. Yeah, on the show, I feel like I'm chatting with you guys, and I'm a lot more confident, and then I say a friend, it was the missus. The missus asked me, what do I think? And she was like, look, I hope you're not going to Manchester with your hopes up, and she's a Charlton fan, by the way. So she never has her hopes up. But I hope that you're not going into that game expecting much. And I was like, no, I'm honestly not. I think that Manchester City will win, and it will probably be something silly. So she has this effect of making me, because she's a pessimistic person, brings my optimism down. So whilst I'll be all optimistic and happy and stuff here, she brings me back down to earth with a thud sometimes, and I think I was more so. But it's that barrier, that mental block that going to the Etihad has been for us. And I think, Sean, that the Etihad itself was what was probably giving me that feeling of dread and doom that ultimately came through in the end as well. Fahim says, do Arsenal need a focal point up front next season? I think a striker continues to be a lot more of a focus for us. And I think I've talked a bit length about Gabriel Jesus and how we probably need to be looking at being ruthless with our squad and bringing in another striker. And that's where we need to be with it. Hugo Boss says a 9 is too high. Fair enough. It's not in mine. Challenging for a title. Unreal. Has to be a 9. Let's go to scrolling down a little bit more. Holding sold in the summer, says Diego. Potentially. He's still under contract. I think he'll have 1 year left after this season, I think. We have an option to extend by another one. So if you can get a good fee for him, then yeah. If you can move him on for a decent figure, move him on. I think we can go and get a centre-back this summer. So, yeah, I think that's probably the way forwards. Dave says, what do you think the transfer spend will be in the summer? I'm hoping a record level. You know, if you got back into the Champions League, you're a side that wants establishing itself as a title challenger again. I think it has to be of record levels in terms, not net spend, but just gross spend. I think we need to look at spending big. I think that we can obviously move a lot of players on for some good money. Balogun, you look at, and Nketiah maybe even. You think about Pablo Mari's going to move on, Cedric's going to move on, Maitland-Niles moving on a free, Nelson may even go, we don't know. Lokonga you could sell, Pepe we need to sell, Tavares we can sell, you know, Tierney may go. I think there is options for us to make some money in this team. So yeah, let's wait and see what happens. Let's go to there's some really strange ones. Nigel says, how are you doing in the Fantasy Premier League? You know, whenever I get asked this question, it's just because I know the person asking it is probably in front of me in the league table. In the TGT Members League, I am out of 43. I'm 12th. So 13th now, sorry, not too bad. I'm joint 12th with Kian. We're both on 1994, which is the year I was actually born. So how ironic is that? So that's what I'm on at the moment, 1,994 points right now, which leaves me in the whole world 1,169,971st. That's where I am overall. In terms of Arsenal, I'm in the top 200,000, which is quite nice. But yeah, I talked to I've obviously got a group of close friends here at home, and they're ridiculously good. Top of the table at the moment has 2,240 points. Second place has 2,238 points. And third place has 2,185 points. You know, the league that we have with my close group of friends, they are silly good at fantasy, like stupidly good. And that's what I'm up against. So yeah, I'd say I'm doing okay. I think I'm doing above average, surely. Let's go to Dave says, sell, Holding, Tierney, Tavares, Maitland-Niles, Cedric. I think Maitland-Niles is leaving on a free from the sounds of things. James says, what do you think about Arsenal moving to a ballot ticket system for 23-24? I think it's the right step. I know it's going to be a frustration for some fans because they're now like, well, now I'll have to like wait and hope that I get a ticket. But I think it's the way forwards. I think it's the best way to try and stop the bots. I think it's the best way to try and stop the touting as much. The Reds memberships, you know, the ballot system that's doing there. We'll only know the real if it works next season. I have a fear that the ballot system will unfortunately lead to maybe potentially still some empty seats, because if the ballot system delivers those seats to a bot or a tout and they aren't then sold, you know, that could be an issue. But it's a strategy. It's something they've got to try. You know, we've got to be a bit experimental with how we use the ticketing system. But a lot of people called for this. I think the problem that this does resolve is the people waiting in a queue for 2 hours. I think that's a big part of this, is that you've got to try and stop that. You know, people not being able to buy tickets has been a big thing because they've not been able to wait in a queue for 2 hours. You've got people like teachers and NHS staff, you know, that aren't able to get onto the ticket system at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, you know. So I think this ballot system certainly helps with that you just have to enter yourself into the ballot to try and get a ticket, and we'll go from there. But I'm hoping that it has a positive effect, but I think there is always going to be some drawbacks with anything, you know, anything regarding the ticket system. It's never going to be perfect. So there's always going to be something that we are frustrated with, but hopefully it's an improvement on the current system. And for those that think, you know, now I've got to do it by a luck of the draw, arguably it was a luck of the draw if you were getting a ticket these days anyway. So I'm not sure that is necessarily a reason not to use this system. Did Isaac surprise you, Neil? Yes, Isaac has done brilliantly well. Really, really. They paid a hell of a lot of money for him. But he's doing very, very well. And, you know, back in the day when we were linked with him at Real Sociedad, you know, I was keen on the idea of Isaac. I thought his link up with Odegaard would be great to see. But, yeah, he has certainly surprised me. And I think that has overachieved what expectations were. And he's having a very, very good season indeed. What's your starting lineup for next season? If you could do anything, forget money, says Boss. Well, I think you asked earlier about, Mbappe. So if you want a striker that's the perfect one, you go and sign Mbappe. So sure, let's put Mbappe in our forward line with Martinelli and with Saka, Odegaard, Declan Rice, and Moises Caicedo. That as a midfield three. Woof. Oh no, actually, if money's no object, you got to go Jude Bellingham, haven't you? Arsenal signing Mbappe, Jude Bellingham, Declan Rice for next season. I don't see that happening. But yeah, that's surely what you got to look to. And that's why I never, ever really answer these questions, because when money isn't an option, it's just like playing a video game, which is never, ever going to happen. Viro says, can we sign Caicedo, Rice, Fresneda, Tony for around 200 million? For the record, I don't want to sign Ivan Tony. I don't think he's good enough to take on that spot. Look, I think he's very good. I don't underrate Ivan Toney. I think he's a good striker. But if Arsenal are going to go and try and sign someone to compete with Erling Haaland, I don't think it's Ivan Toney. I don't think he's the striker that takes us to the next level beyond Jesus. I don't think he takes us to a title challenging level, does Ivan Toney. Plus, there's all this betting stuff hanging over him at the moment, so we need to wait for the outcome of that stuff. But I think that if you're looking at the other deals, Caicedo, yes. Rice, yes. Fresneda, yes. We need to look at trying to bring in quality, and they are three very good players. More so Rice and Caicedo. Fresneda is still a young guy that's got to prove himself a lot more. But Tony, for me, I think that we need to be looking at a level above. Neil says, is Willock better than Vieira at the moment? Yeah, without a doubt. And I don't buy into the whole we sold Willock to buy Vieira. They were 2 years apart from my reckoning. So I don't really get when people say that. I'm pretty sure we bought Odegaard in the summer that we sold Joe Willock. And I wouldn't swap those two at all. Would I swap Joe Willock for Vieira right now? Probably, yeah. But that's part and parcel of football. You can't look back 2 years and go, "Oh, we shouldn't have sold X, Y, Z." We got 25 million for Willock, and that money is one of the best fees that we've got for a player in recent times. So I wouldn't have changed that, because it may have stopped us from getting Odegaard, who is a far better player than Joe Willock, a far, far better player. Sean says you should show off that 94-95 away jersey you were gifted. The kit is one for the ages. Yeah, it's in the wash at the moment. I said I wore it when I was out in Chicago, and I'm in the process of still washing the ridiculously big suitcase worth of clothes that I have. So yes, that will certainly be featuring. Don't you worry. Wilson says, what positions do Arsenal need to strengthen? Right back, centre back, 2 centre mids, forwards, and maybe a left back as well. Depends on what happens with Tierney in the summer. Alex says, Tom, who played better this week, Casemiro or Partey? Partey was terrible. Partey had a really bad week. So I think I'm going to lean, the problem is, right? The problem with Thomas Partey's performances right now is that it just seems so frustratingly... It just seems so frustratingly like he can't get into top gear the same way that he did in big games earlier this season. And when we don't have Partey performing at his peak, we suffer. We suffer so much without Partey performing at his absolute best. I lean towards Casemiro, I think has not been as good as Partey over the course of the whole season. But, just this weekend, Partey's performance really did worry me. It did worry me, significantly so. And we will finish on, let's go to Fahim, who says, do you think Zinchenko and Jesus should start every game when fit, like they have been? Trossard was fantastic and Tierney can do well. And the answer, Fahim, is no. I think Arteta does need to learn to rotate. I think we need to bring players into the team, and another forward is part of that will see us being able to rotate. As I said, we had a good chat last night on Dan's channel with Daps, who's a Man City fan, and we talked about how Man City have a squad of 18 players, really. They have 25, but they have a lot of players that don't really play. But what they do have is that they've got about 6-7 players that could easily rotate with any of the players in their starting 11, really, besides maybe Haaland and De Bruyne. And even then, they've got Alvarez, who's a brilliant player, scored against Liverpool and then was dropped again. So I do think that we need to get into that position where we've got a squad of 18 really good players that can all start for us. That's where we need to get to, is a squad of 18 that can all start for the club. And right now, we're probably on about 13 with the two players that could start for us on the bench being Leandro Trossard and... I mean, is it even more than Leandro Trossard? I feel like I'm giving someone a disservice by not mentioning them. Tierney, I guess, is the other one. But yeah. Gonçalo Ramos, I tell you what, Viraj, that's a player who escaped my mind when writing my piece yesterday. Gonçalo Ramos is the player that I would like to see Arsenal sign. He is the striker that I would like to see Arsenal go for. I mean, Osimhen would be great as well, don't get me wrong. But without a doubt, Gonçalo Ramos would be a great option for Arsenal to go for in the summer. I'd love to see us sign Gonçalo Ramos. So, yeah, for me, he would be, besides Osimhen, maybe my number one striker target, Gonçalo Ramos. It's not just because I've interviewed him, as I've mentioned before. I would love to see Ramos join Arsenal. I think he would be a fantastic signing, a great young player, scoring goals, more physical, good in the air, and great with the ball at his feet, technical, good finisher, World Cup pedigree as well, of course. So, yeah, Gonçalo Ramos, he's my pick. He's the one. He's the one I'd like. Thank you guys for listening. Really appreciate your time as always. Do drop a like on the video if you would be so kind. And if you are new to the channel, we do these shows every single day, 8 a.m. UK time. So subscribe, turn notifications on so you don't miss things. There might be a show later on today, but I'm not sure that there will be. But we'll obviously have a preview for the Chelsea game at some point, probably over the weekend. And yeah, that's it. That is it. Thank you, everybody. I will see you on the Arsenal Way at 10, I believe. I'll be back on there. First show I've done since arriving back from America, so that'll be good. But yeah, have a fantastic day if I haven't told you already, which I'm sure I have. And as always, up the Arsenal.